Hello everyone. Let's hope we have people here because I cannot see the chat bar today. So we're here. Oh, it's because we have 0 viewers at this moment in time.
Thank God.
Hopefully people will be joining us. But let's explain why we are here in the first place. This is part of our panel for the diversity in film session that we held at the Analogue Spotlight event in May. I say part because we are missing Emma, who is on holiday, lucky her, and we're also missing Rob, who's having technical difficulties, so he may be joining us at some point. Oh, here we go. I think he might be here.
Yay!
Can we hear Rob?
Right, can you hear me?
Yes, we have audio.
Yes.
There we go. So we're just introducing everyone, Rob. So who have we got for anyone who wasn't at the Analogue Spotlight launch event? We've got Alicia from Lensfair, who also helps me to run things when we have moments to do so. We have Max from Cameras by Max, representing non-binary people in the industry. We've got Izzy and we've got Sundari, who are both wonderful participants. Oh, we've lost Rob again.
We've lost Rob again.
And of course, the fact that we don't have Emma on here is not that she won't be joining me. We are hoping to have her. Here we go. Is he back? Her and Alex from the Grainsplaining podcast join us at a later date, so that's going to be fun. And then, of course, we've got Rob representing the male opinion.
London Camera Projects.
Yes, London Camera Projects. When he can be here, that is. So, today's event is going to be much more relaxed. Oh, and he's gone again. Today's event is going to be much more relaxed than the last one. Last time we were really constrained to the hour that we had between other speakers. We didn't know how popular this was all going to be. We didn't know how engaged the audience was going to be. We just, it was the first event. We had no idea. So this time, it's relatively open-ended. Obviously, we won't go on for hours and hours. But this is going to be a much more relaxed and informal chat. We have some questions and some feedback from the event that we'll be talking about. But yeah, it'll be just more of a chat. I have my gin and tonic. I think everyone has some sort of drink, whether alcoholic or not. But the first thing that I sort of wanted to put out there, because the feedback from the event was really great, especially around diversity. So we had, I'll share some of the good things and the bad things. Like, I'm not just gonna make it a one-sided conversation, because whilst the goal of the Analogue Spotlight is to improve diversity, we're not sort of winning on all fronts. There is still work to be done. So we definitely had constructive criticism as well. But what I wanted to do was sort of find out what you guys thought about the event. Before I share any of that feedback, I wanted to find out what you guys thought about how it went. Anybody want to start?
Well, obviously, I thought it went amazingly well. I haven't personally been to many events like this myself. There's been a few local things that I've been to in Nottingham, and I would say, just genuinely, that I think, I know this sounds a bit like I'm bigging us up as organisers, but I know that we tried really hard to get as diverse selection of vendors as possible, to not just the usual suspects and people that usually attend these events, and try and make it as diverse as possible. So I think it was the first one. And I think we did as well as we could do. And I'm just hoping that going forward, that's going to set a precedent for us making it more and more diverse.
Yeah, I agree. I've been to a few sort of camera type things. And I think the thing with Analogue Spotlight that made it so nice was just, it really felt like sort of a safe space. Like, everybody was sort of there to support the smaller businesses and sort of connect with the people behind those businesses, and chat to each other, and everyone going out on the photo walk, obviously everybody connected, and it just felt really community based rather than sort of much more like corporate, like things like the photography show and the NEC, like that's very corporate feeling. Whereas I thought the Analogue Spotlight was just really like chill, and it was just nice to chat to everybody. And like I set my business up like in lockdown, so I've never really met people in person, so it was like putting all these like faces to names and like, oh, I talked to you on Instagram like every day, and yeah, everyone was just kind of really nice.
When you said about connecting people on Instagram, that was what it was like for me, just meeting so many people I've chatted to online, and like I kind of got more into this hobby in, like, for me it's a hobby, in lockdown, so it was really nice like actually meeting people in person. And I mean I've not been to that many photography. I mean, I've never been to that kind of photography event. I've been to photo walks, that kind of thing. That's the only thing I've got to really compare it to. But yeah, it definitely felt very community driven, and not corporate at all. So that was very nice. Yeah.
Audio.
Oh no.
It was actually one of the first photography events, and what to expect, but there was, particularly when we were doing the panel, felt like a very embracing energy. Everybody wanted to be part of it.
Oh no, the audio, I don't know if it is for everyone else, but the audio is pretty bad. But I picked up a few key themes from there. And here is a quote from one piece of feedback. So all the feedback we received was completely anonymous, so I won't be divulging any names for any of this. But one of the pieces that was said is, the day was absolutely brilliant from start to finish. The spread of the exhibitors, the different talks, the whole positive community vibe, and the absolute mutual respect for everyone at the event. I just really love that bit. I just thought that is exactly what we wanted, that idea.
That was me. No, I'm joking. No, that's amazing.
I want that person to write me a Google review.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mutual respect. That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just like choked on a piece of ice there. Now, the next thing I wanted to say, unfortunately, is directly for Sundari, so I don't know if the audio is going to work for you, but we'll see. So one of the key themes that you had, that you wanted to talk about, was this idea of not feeling like you could enter the competition, like you just didn't feel like that was sort of a safe space for you. And someone has actually said, the competition made me more confident to share my work. That may well have been you that said that. But I wondered if you wanted to expand on your thoughts from the panel session on that.
Yeah, again, I'm really sorry about my audio. So talking about seeing the email being so intimidating, and like, no, I'm not into that at all. But actually walk around and see all of tired. Can you hear me?
Here and
Like
there.
a few words.
Yeah.
Maybe you could type something and then Holly could read it out or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you may have to be a silent participant, unfortunately. And I think Rob is unfortunately just a black screen at this point. Rob, can you hear us? Can you speak to us?
Is he there? I'm going to message him.
Oh. It says someone's trying to join. I wonder if that's Rob trying to join from a different...
Maybe next time we should all be in the same room and live.
Yeah. Oh,
that would be lovely. That would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing with the theme of feedback, and I said I would share some of the constructive criticism as well, because I think that's only fair that we don't try and make it sound like this was amazing. And so we had some people who were saying things like, I'm very shy around new groups of people, so I ended up not mingling as much as I'd have liked. It felt like everyone already knew each other. And I think from my perspective, a lot of people, as you say, knew each other from chatting online. It wasn't like you actually knew each other. It was just that you were meeting, having had some sort of virtual communication. And I was really surprised by the number of people who suggested we have things like single sessions where people who wanted to go to meet new people, especially this seemed to come a lot from people who aren't like the classic demographic, the middle-aged white man, or in those sort of popular groups, that they wanted these sessions to be able to meet other people. And yeah, I just wondered what your thoughts on that were, like, about setting up specific getting to know you sessions.
Like speed dating.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I kind of agree that like I knew a lot of people from sort of Instagram, so there was like a vague connection, and being a vendor, I think people sort of knew who I was. Well, my name was plastered everywhere anyway. Hi, Rob. But yeah, I definitely understand that feeling of, you know, like walking into the space and thinking, oh my God, everybody here knows everybody else. And it can sort of, from the outside, seem quite cliquey, but I genuinely don't think it was like that at all. And I think it's easy to say that, you know, it was easy to talk to people, but I think, yeah, having perhaps a space that it was specifically for meeting people could be quite interesting. Like, just sort of, it's kind of like, you know, when you go to university and there's those like icebreaker challenges where, you know, everyone's sat in a circle and you say your name. Oh, that's terrifying. But that kind of
like my
idea
idea
of just
of
like,
hell.
yeah, but maybe just something like, oh, hi, I'm Max and my favorite camera is whatever. I don't know what my favorite camera is, but that kind of thing. Sundari said, oh, OMG, I knew no one. It was scary, but being on the panel, I was able to connect with Izzy. I guess that helped me. I was definitely intimidated, though, by talking to people on the stalls and not knowing them or meeting them before.
Yeah, so we just mentioned before, like, actually going live, that recently Izzy and Sundari went for a photo shoot together, and we hadn't actually realised that they hadn't met before this. Like, they just seem to get on so well, and I think that's what's really nice, is that some real connections have been made. And this was something that Emma mentioned with her G Hearts film photo walks, that a lot of people who are a bit too nervous to go to other events have used that as like a springboard to go and see other things where they've previously not felt like they could.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me with that. That's how I met most of the people who were at the event. Actually, everyone really. And then from there, that's how I've made other connections. So yeah, and it's really good. It's good for like a good way to just get into photo walks as well, if that's something that interests people, because it's just a great way to meet someone, meet some people on that original photo walk, and then you sort of go, oh, another photo walk's coming up. Shall we meet beforehand? Or, you know, it's just a really good way to get into it.
Yeah, Sundari says, I actually really now want to go on a walk. I was previously just too terrified.
You should do. There's one on the 27th of August.
Where is that one taking place?
London.
Good facial acting there, Sundari.
It's one of the Analogue meetup ones. I don't actually know where in London, but it's in London.
Yeah, because I've never been on one. I really want to try
Come.
one. It's just, I live in
Yeah,
Norfolk.
I've never been on one
It
either.
takes 100,000 years to get out of Norfolk.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I'm not sure how many photo walks there are in other sort of parts of the country, actually. I don't know if they're...
Yeah, well, it's a weird one because I've always thought like, oh, I'd love to do my own photo walk, but then I'm like, there's going to be no one show up. No one's going to be from this area or whatever. But then I had an email today. It was like, oh, I live down the road from you. Can I drop a camera off? And I was like, oh, that's bizarre. But that's also another thing that's nice, like, about the events, is kind of hearing where everybody's from. And, you know, everyone's like closer than you think they are, I think.
A lot of people travel to the London ones from like quite far away, like Leeds and like other places like that. Like, I've always been surprised about how many people actually come out of London.
Yeah, we'll be hopefully doing one soon. Like, as soon as we open our store, like, that'll be one of the things we do. There's an amazing photo community in Nottingham, especially with like they were called the Photo Pal, they're now called Make It Easy, who have like combined with Take It Easy, and so they've always done like socials and events like that. So hopefully we can join them and combine and join forces and do something like that here.
I'll definitely be coming to that one because I'm from Nottingham.
Amazing. I know, you said before. That would be amazing.
Sundari says, I think there can sometimes be an aura around these events that people are just scared of joining because it's the unknown. It's like going to a new school. And this idea of like schools, cliques, you know, like that sort of mentality is something that I've seen used as like terminology quite a lot, like this idea of feeling like you're the new person, even though I think actually most of us feel that way. Like for me, I think, and I hate to say that it's because of a man that I now feel a bit more ingrained in the community, but I think it was starting to write for Hamish on 35mmc that started to make me feel like I could chat to people, you know, on the comments on my articles, you know, and then I started up the YouTube channel. Like that was the catalyst that got me more involved in the community. But yeah, I do think it can feel like, how do I get into this?
I think that's why the things like She Hearts Film and those kind of inclusive spaces are so important, because like you'd go to a She Hearts Film photo walk knowing the type of people that are going to be there. And like as a queer person, like I would always gravitate towards events or spaces that advertise as being queer friendly or a safe space for queer people. And I think, you know, that's why having, you know, this panel and things like Analogue Spotlight that are highlighting those things, that's so important at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people in the comments sort of, well, a lot of people. There's a few people in the comments saying like She Hearts Film has done great things and going on in other locations. A couple of people saying there's none here in the countryside, but would love to find some.
Start one yourself.
Yeah, like maybe that's what people should do. Like just start organizing. Just if you've got a group of friends, just, you know, just go on a photo walk together, and maybe it can turn into a bigger thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be exclusively analog. It could be any kind of
Exactly.
thing, yeah.
Does anybody feel like they don't want to go to a photo walk because of the gear that they've got? Or like you're going to be judged for like which camera you're using, what type of film you're using?
I think that's definitely a thing. I don't know that I can see why that would put someone off. I think I just don't care because I've never been someone that's like really into camera snobbery anyway. Like, you know, so I think I'd just not be bothered even if someone was like, "Ugh, you've got that camera," or like, you know. But I can totally understand and appreciate that would be something that would put people off, thinking that you need to have, you know, like a Leica or a Contax or whatever, insert here, like, you know, that kind of camera in order to be considered to be a serious photographer, or just someone that even, you know, kind of has any sort of like, you know what I mean? Yeah, but like, I don't know. I think, that's definitely a thing. It wouldn't put me off personally.
I think there is a perception that it's all going to be talking technology and you have to have like a really good camera, but from my experience, and you will get some people that love talking about the tech stuff, like that's just, you have to accept that, and that might not be your thing. But like, I think from what I've realized starting to go to more of these events, that people are actually just so friendly at these events, and it's more about the social aspects as opposed to the actual like taking, well, you can take photos, but it's more about that than like showing off your gear. I mean, there will be some people that show off their gear, but like it is more about the social aspects, I think, than anything else. I think it's a bit of a, maybe it's like a historical thing, like some, like in the past it has, I
think it's a stigma, because I know when we were organising the one for the event in May, the advice that even, you know, the people who've been on loads of these things were giving was, don't bring a technical camera, bring your easiest camera to shoot, because you won't want to stand and stop taking pictures for ages. People want to move on, people want to, you know, crack on. And this is the people I think that we're worried are going to be technical about it, the people who have tried loads of cameras, the people that have got all the gear, and actually it's even them saying, no, just bring an easy to shoot one. But I think there's a big stigma, and I think what I'm getting from a lot of the comments I hear is that there's like a barrier that's gone up because of how things have been done. and actually that might not be how they're necessarily still being done, but that, and this is a theme we did touch on in May when we had our panel, was that it's about inviting people back into these spaces where they're now worried to go because of fear of being talked down to, you know, being ousted as something, you know. I think that's a big theme.
I mean, I've had mostly positive experiences at these events, bar one person who mansplained stuff to me. But what was really nice is that, like,
Ring-splaining.
there was another person there who it kind of became like a funny thing. Like, it was like not it was annoying, but like it kind of made them look stupid, and the people who were around kind of were like the person. So
someone in the comments has actually said, do any of you on the panel feel like your gear has been looked down on personally?
Yeah, I was going to circle back to you actually, Max, wondering if that was something that you've felt why you raised the question. Is that a reason why you've been?
Yeah, not so much since running my own business, but back when I was sort of in university and doing freelance photography, like there was a lot of camera snobbery within my university. But then all arts universities are kind of a bit snobbery.
We went
anyway.
to the same uni.
Did you find that when you went there that it was kind of there's sort of, you know, tiers of people? I think
so. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that was definitely something that I experienced in university, and then when I was working freelance, there was a lot of people that, you know, would talk down to you about your gear and like, oh well, your camera's not as good, like you shouldn't be using that lens for this particular thing, you know, you should have a mirrorless by now, and you know, all of that rubbish. But that's like more the digital side. But since running the business, like I genuinely don't really care like what kind of camera you have, and as long as you're a good photographer and you enjoy using it.
Yeah. Sundari said about let me have a look, about sort of thinking the way I shoot. So I remember thinking the way I shoot because it doesn't make sense.
She doesn't even like me or anything. She just shoots.
Basically, like how I didn't feel like you could go to a photo walk because you don't use a light meter. But I think I've only seen one person use a proper light meter at a photo walk. So.
Yeah.
it's basically street photography, so it's kind of
exactly.
You know.
You just wing it. Well, you don't wing it. You just like Sundari went on to say that she shoots intuitively.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound dickheadish at all. Like this is what she said.
Well, I think this is that you don't, like, some people just don't want to talk about their methods. That like, you might go somewhere. Like I think that do they do like walking draw? I'm sure I've seen walking drawing or walking painting things, and it's more about just going and doing it, and less about how you do stuff. And so I suppose some people are worried if you're going on a photo walk, the chat is gonna be dominated by gear talk when you just don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
No,
yeah, definitely.
You get a mix of people at the walks personally. Like some people are like a bit more like don't really think about what they're doing technically, but and some people do. But like I don't think it's I just don't think it's as judgmental as people think it is.
Yeah. So Rob has joined us in the comments because he's having such bad technical difficulties. And I would be interested to know from Rob, as a photo walk organizer, what sort of themes come up as you're walking around. Like, does it become very gear centric, or is it something else? Like, because I've never been on a photo walk still, so I have absolutely no idea. Obviously, I do want to. I will join one day.
I think what I would find like most interesting if I was on a photo walk is like what people stop to take pictures of, because I feel like we would all stop at really different points, and you like, you know, when you're out on the street and you see someone pointing a camera and you think, what are they looking at? I can't see what they're looking at. And so I feel like every photographer would have like a different thing to, you know, different angle or different perspective on everything.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, last year me and Eve were in London. It was the day I was giving up my job. I'd handed in my laptop and everything, and we were just having a walk around taking some photos, and she'd brought her film camera. She's normally a digital photographer, but she'd brought her film camera in to have a go. And I was shooting, and this gentleman stopped us as we were both taking a picture to ask us about the cameras, because he was like, oh, I used to shoot film, and he was out with his digital camera, and we exchanged social media details with each other, and we all took a picture of the same thing, and then did like a bit of a round robin on
That's
Instagram
cool.
to show the different ways that we'd captured this same subject matter, which I thought was really interesting. Oh, what's this? The homie Sundari.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talking about what film you're using seems a lot more relevant than what camera you have. I agree.
Yeah.
What sort of film stocks do you like to use?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but it's whatever I can get my hands on.
Basically, that's what I was just thinking. Like, it's so scarce
Yeah.
these days that
Yeah.
whatever you can get.
Yeah.
Rob saying loving this. Oh, Sundari has a new Canon A1 from Cameras by Max, actually.
Great camera.
Very good camera.
Solid.
Classic.
Classic.
And finally got the
But
battery
just
in.
before the stream, Sundari was messaging me like, I can't get the battery in the battery thing.
Like with my nails.
Good
Like,
technical support from
Oh,
Max.
yeah.
Then.
Those nails and like trying to open the battery door and get the right angle to get the thing in without snapping the door off. That's why so many of those doors on those cameras are broken, because people just like shove the battery in and slam the door shut and then it cracks.
Proper feminist issue there. Having the wrong fingernails for opening camera
I couldn't
batteries.
break a nail or anything. What is
Good.
everybody's favourite camera, actually?
What's everyone's favourite camera?
Let's not talk about camera. What's everyone's favourite camera?
Oh,
Well, yeah, what
don't
sort
know
of
if I-
shooting style? Are you like a point and shoot person, or are you manual, or are you alternative format?
who was that question for?
Anyone.
Oh.
Anyone.
I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite camera that I use. Like, I know when I was growing up, I went to college and did photography, and at college we were all issued Pentax K1000s. That was the standard issue, and so it's just one that I'm really like sort of used to, like really familiar with, and so I don't know if it's necessarily even my favorite, but I enjoy using it because it's so familiar. And then for a point and shoot, there's like maybe the Canon Auto Boy. I actually really like how noisy it is. Like, I just like how it just feels really tactile, and it's like it's got a nice sound to it. And then recently we've been using a Bronica. Which one is it? An ETRS, a medium format. So we've been using that, and I've really enjoyed using that one recently. So I think it's just like I kind of like just go between like obviously, as having a camera store, you have so many different cameras that pass through, and then we'll test them out sometimes, and I'll use some for a while before we sell them on, and then like so it's kind of I think I just enjoy just trying lots of different cameras out, and I don't really feel like I have a favorite per se, but there are ones that I definitely like feel more comfortable using.
Nice.
Sorry if you've got my plane noise coming in. So personally, I use photography as like an art form. So I've recently been trying out some point and shoots that I've borrowed from Peggy, who runs the Camera Go Camera website. And I've actually found it really frustrating using these point and shoots. And I realised how much I hate not having control. And whilst I don't want to spend too much time thinking about the technology, I also want to have a level of control. So I don't have a favourite camera, but I like enough manual control to be able to capture what I have envisaged without it hindering on capturing the moment that I want to get.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Like, I use the Canon F1 which is obviously fully manual. And then my other favorite camera is the Samurai, which is fully automatic. So it just depends what mood I'm in. And I'm using this at the moment, which is the Pen EX2.
Yeah.
You've probably seen them all over my Instagram because I'm obsessed. But yeah, like having a camera shop is amazing because you just like, yeah, I'll use this. But I've ended up with loads of rolls that are half done because I
Oh my God,
put
I'm
it
the
in
same.
camera. I put it in the camera sells, and then I'm like, oh God, I have to take it back out. So there's all these rolls of film lined up that say like 15, 23 of how many pictures I've done.
So Dan is out of shot at the moment laughing at me because he always has a go at me for doing that. And we have like an ongoing joke that whenever I want to use a camera, so a camera might be sitting on the shelf for like, I know, like a few weeks, and I'm just like, oh, I want to test this one out. And then as soon as one of us go to use it, like just
Someone
generally to
buys
shoot with, it will sell. And then like, so I'm the same, like we have a little fridge in there and it's just like, there's so many rolls of film that are like half used. And like, it's not just me then, I'm glad. That's funny.
So here's an interesting question. When shooting street, do you go stealth or ask permission? And I don't know, again, if this is like a stigma that I've formed in my mind, but I think women are a lot more worried, and perhaps people who have historically been sort of talked down to, so non-binary or anyone else, they're more worried to shoot strangers in the street than men are. I think men are more happy to just go for it. What do you think?
I've never done it personally. I've never taken pictures of people on the street like that. Just nope, not for me.
It depends. Like if it's like you're going up to them and this isn't. I don't really do that much sort of that kind of photography, but like going up to them and actually asking someone for like a proper portrait, not just sort of photographing someone doing something nonchalantly, sort of candid with them out, maybe without them realizing you're taking a photo of them. I don't know. I mean, I think it depends how brave I'm feeling. Probably.
Yeah,
but
I don't know if it's to do with like who you are as a person or like your confidence as a photographer. Like if you thought you were a really good photographer, I feel like you'd be more likely to just be like, oh, can I take your portrait? Whereas if you were a bit more self-conscious about your work and you didn't share your work as much, you're probably not as likely to approach someone and say, can I take a picture of you? It'll probably be terrible.
Yeah, I do a bit of street photography. I never share my work. I have an Instagram that I haven't posted on for years. Like I'm just not the sort of person that shares work, but I do actually take a lot of photos. Like maybe it'll appear in like example photos that we have for cameras that we've got or something like that, but like not really like posting socially, or like a few reels or something. Do you know what I mean? But like I think it is a confidence thing. I don't know if it has anything to do with gender necessarily, but like I think it's just something that you build up over time. Like there's been a lot of my photography, I'll just, if I see something and like it feels like the right moment or it feels like they'll agree, like, do you know, I think you read off people as well, and then I'll just say, can I take a photo? And usually they're more than happy for you to stop and take a photo. I'm usually taking photos of people's pets, to be fair. They're more than happy for me to take a picture of their dog or something like that, or just someone that I like the look of generally, if I think they look interesting. And I think you often find that they're really flattered, and it just I think it just comes with practice. Like maybe if it's something that you want to do, maybe try with people with pets, because they'll always say yes. They're always really flattered and think it's cute. So and then that could like help you build confidence to start approaching people generally.
Yeah, because I like Max, I tend to avoid shooting people unless they're entirely in silhouette or completely unrecognizable in the photo I'm taking. I do have one photo from years ago that was one of these sort of, in the moment I just snapped it, and it's one of my favorite photos that I've ever taken, but I've never ever shared it publicly because it shows very clearly a child's face in it. And I don't feel comfortable ever share, even on like a personal Instagram or something like that, where it's not like me trying to do something professional. I don't feel comfortable sharing it because it's somebody's child that I never asked for permission to take the image of. Sundari says, I only did it one time with a wedding couple, and that was risky with another photographer there, but I did ask permission, and I have this beautiful photo, but it's not one they'll ever see.
Oh, you should do one of those things where you like post it and sort of try to find the couple and pray they haven't divorced yet.
Rob said, I like the interaction with strangers, so I'm happy to ask. I pretend I'm really shy and working on my ability to approach people.
Amazing. I did a photo walk once with Ribsy, and he just like was so, he like just went up to anyone and everyone. He was so brave.
I imagine he would, yeah.
Yeah, and I just sort of like followed behind him and just like sort of
taking sneak shots, like
yeah, exactly. I was just like used to taking his little sneak shot. That was quite interesting because yeah, he was very like everyone that he interacted with was like super happy to have their photo taken. I think we were like in a place where there were lots of people with cameras anyway, so maybe that's the key. And also, I think I don't know if anyone else finds this, but having an analog camera, I think, is always a conversation starter, even if you're not taking a photo of someone. Like they're always like, "Oh my gosh, that's an analog camera. I used to have one of those in the 80s or something." I don't know. I think that's quite. If you do want to take photos of strangers, often the camera is something that people are really intrigued by. But
yeah,
and I've definitely seen one of Ribsy's videos where he was using one of those peel apart Polaroid type films, and I think having an intriguing camera definitely helps with the conversation starter.
Yeah.
And I think it would be less intimidating as well, because you're not taking a digital photo that then you can see straight away and decide whether you like it or not. It's something that, you know, they're not going to see yet. You can't see it yet. Yeah. So it's kind of like less scary, I guess.
Yeah. We have a question from, I don't know what the name is, Ambient Wave. I'm just about to get, it's not a question really, but I'm just about to get into film photography, and one of the attractions is the limited number of photos. I like digital, but I'm tired of returning home with hundreds of digital photos. And yeah, I think as someone who likes it as an art form, I like not having so much mental clutter from.
Yeah, agree.
Definitely.
Oh.
Just reading the comments.
Yeah. So hip shoot film, I hate asking someone for a photo, but if needs must, and they look great sometimes, the want for a photo overcomes the fear. Now that's something else that worries me, because this gentleman that we met in London that I was mentioning before, he said he loves taking pictures of strangers, but he chooses people who have a unique look. And I think you take a big gamble there, because yes, they may be very proud and confident and expressing themselves, or you may be calling them out for something that you shouldn't be calling them out for. So I always worry, like, this is the thing, is it because I'm a woman that I worry about these things, or is it just me? Like, am I just different? I don't know.
I think it depends on how you approach people, but someone here, Ambient Wave, said that's interesting because as a guy, I feel like I may come across more of a threat taking photos of strangers than someone of the opposite gender, which I guess is kind of like, but yeah, I'm lending more towards taking street photos that hide the identity of strangers on the street. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's all about how you approach people, isn't it? Like if you go to someone and say, you know, I want to take a photo of you because you've got crazy hair, then maybe that's a bit offensive. I don't know. Like, I think it's just, like, I think.
Yes, I'm sure he had a lot of tact in how he asked, but it's still
exactly.
Most people are super nice on the street. Only one or two might say something. Very true. Yeah. What's the worst they could say? No, I suppose.
Yeah. True. I think it's one of those things that once you start doing it, you just get more confident doing it, like anything.
Yeah, like anything.
Oh, not that one. Here we go. I find bringing an instant camera with you is always a great idea. That way they get a memento. Very true, but very expensive way to do it.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
give it away.
Oh, I used to shoot with a female photographer, and I remember one time she had a problem with someone. I think this is the thing. It's just having the confidence to do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I think we've talked about fear a lot. So, Max, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about your experience of being non-binary in the analog space, in running a business, and just sort of generally being a member. Anything you want to say?
Well, I just think it was interesting. Last time at Analogue Spotlight, there were several people that came up to me after and sort of expressed that like they wanted there to be sort of more talk about, you know, queerness within the film photography community, because obviously, you know, at the moment there's so much talk about female photographers, women photographers, that kind of thing, that there isn't yet the space for then queer photographers or non-binary photographers, because at the moment, you know, it's kind of like we're 5 or 10 years in the past, like we're focusing on women, female photographers, which is amazing, and that's so important and so necessary. And then, you know, I was kind of having a conversation with someone about how this is what the community needs right now, is to, you know, progress in that way, and then in the future they'll then open up these spaces for non-binary photographers and queer photographers to then have our own platforms and our own involvement, which is why I really want to be part of this panel and talk about the diversity, because there isn't yet that space for me personally, that's like non-binary film photographers or like queer film photographers. It's just kind of like, you know, we get slipped in with like, oh yeah, female photographers, like you can kind of go in that umbrella, that bracket. And it's a conversation I've had multiple times with people when I've been invited to do similar things like this. And like I was invited to do a post for Grain Girls, and it was like, well, I don't identify as female or a woman, but your space is obviously Grain Girls. So then there was a lot of discussion about like, well, it's not really like specifically for women, it's for non-men. It's creating spaces outside of like the white cisgender heterosexual stereotype of photographers, or that, you know, that group of photographers.
Yeah. And I think it's
But you
oh,
Oh,
I've lost
no.
Max.
Making an amazing point.
Yeah.
have I frozen?
Yeah, you froze, but
You
only
froze.
just at the end. Only at the
Could
end.
Can you hear me?
It was only the end bit we lost you. That was it.
Oh, everybody froze at the same time. That's fine, because I forgot. I like lost what I was saying anyway. So
Well, it was amazing, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think such a valid point, and it was something I have literally worried about ever since we came up with the name, when the original panel was called Women in Film, and then I didn't change it before, and that's why this one is called Diversity in Film, is because it was never meant to be women in film, but as you say, it's almost like the go-to. It's like the thing that you think of, you know, women in film, women, you know, we need to feminist, all this, but actually it's more than that, and that's why we wanted it to represent not even just the sort of obvious ones, which are sort of race, religion, sexuality, gender, but age, because I think that was a big thing that came across in the feedback, was about the age range at the event that we ran, but also how younger people felt so excluded. And I think I'm just at that generation where I'm old enough to be taken seriously, but I'm young enough to feel a little effect of being a young person in a traditionally older industry. And so I think the point you're making there about the fact that there are terminologies that make it so much harder to feel like you're being represented.
yeah, well, for me, I think you were saying about the name, like obviously it's called Women in Film. For me, it's all about the intention of, you know, the intention of creating the space that you have is to highlight the diversity and the difference within the film community. It's not to say, only women can join this space, only female photographers can join this space. That's not the intention at all. It's to, you know, embrace the diversity and to encourage people that don't have a huge platform, like being featured on Kodak, for example, giving them their own platform and their own space to kind of, you know, explore film photography.
Yeah, and this is something that we talk about a lot in our meetings as the Analogue Spotlight. Is there is no question, like, we don't want to push anyone out. We're not trying to push men out. We're not saying we don't want men in this group. We're saying there is space for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure that they feel that everyone feels welcome? And Sundari says, it's a weird thing. I feel more assimilated with this title than women. I feel more of a diverse photographer than a woman one. Does that sound strange? And I don't think that does. I don't think it does at all.
We're getting a lot of really good questions in.
Right, let's have a look.
Oh, here we go. Paragraphs, aren't they? Maybe.
Yeah, would it be too bad to ask for some sort of event for the non-cisgender hetero white male film photographers asking for a friend? No, I don't think that's too bad at all. I think if you need that space to feel comfortable, then branch out into wider events, then absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the whole thing about intention again, though, isn't it? Like, you're not expressly saying, oh, we don't want white heterosexual cisgender men, but if you advertise your photo walk, your event as, you know, inclusive, safe, queer friendly, safe space, women, you know, she hearts film, female safe space, then those are the people that are going to gravitate, and you're going to create that environment anyway, without excluding anyone, essentially, without saying, oh, we don't want you here, because you know, people gravitate towards their own group. So if you're putting out the language and, you know, the intention and the desire for a particular group of people, those are the people that are going to show up, just like the Analogue Spotlight event.
Yeah.
What do you mean by the Analogue Spotlight event?
Well, I feel like the way that it was marketed was very, you know, like I said earlier about like small businesses, and we're here to create a friendly environment, and we're all here to sort of, you know, we're going to have a panel on women in film, we're going to have a panel with female photographers and all these different things like that has a very specific intention and a very sort of, you know, nuance.
I have to
guess.
say, it's not surprising that so few people and so few groups are ploughing on with this, because the amount of flack that we got when we announced that this was something that we wanted to do was insane. Like, the way people felt threatened by what we were doing.
Do you mean the panel specifically?
No, not the panel, as in the idea of the Analogue Spotlight, and the fact that diversity was such a like intrinsic part of what we wanted to do. Like, it is so embedded that we don't want to do anything that doesn't have that as like a central goal. And people got, you know, the fact that we ask for like the diversity questions when we're doing various things, obviously those are always voluntary. You don't have to fill any of that in. We would never demand it, but it gives us a better idea of who we're reaching. And the amount of criticism we got for that, and how we were somehow infringing on people's privacy with it, was unbelievable. And so, as I say, it's not surprising how few people want to put themselves out there in almost like this position of danger and public ridicule. It's really not surprising. Like, I'm not saying I'm confident. Like, it's really knocked me, and I've had, you know, some quite terse phone calls with people who have sort of helped me see it in different lights, and to sort of come around and see, you know, it doesn't matter what certain people think, that it is hard. And I do think
the
that
people. No, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I do think that if just coming back to this question of, is it bad to want an event that does exclude certain people just so that you have a safe space and you feel like you can come to something? I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think, you know, some of the reactions that we have to doing these sorts of things is so bad and is quite damaging that, yeah, we do need sometimes to have these spaces that are quite insular. If you know, I know that that's quite a negative way of saying it, but I can't think of like a positive terminology for it, but like, you do need these safer spaces to then feel the confidence to come out into wider industry.
I think you
Were
can
the people that gave you those comments, were they people that have been in the industry for a long time?
Yes.
Yeah, but also hard to tell, I think, in some cases.
Well, it's just interesting, you were saying earlier about sort of doing things that haven't been done before. That's why there's backlash, because you're starting to do things differently. And I remember when Analogue Wonderland set up their Wonder Lab, and they said, like, we're going to be really sustainable because we've seen all the other labs that are crap. They got absolutely bombarded by people saying, oh my God, no, like, we're doing it the right way, you're wrong. Don't come and try and change our practice, because they've been doing it the same way for so long.
Yeah,
I think it's whenever you start to upset the status quo and people start to feel, I guess, like it's very fear based, isn't it? Because, like, you know, it's like we don't want to have to change, and and I think that's the problem. But yeah, absolutely. I would say, I mean, I don't know all the people that had said things, but I would definitely say it was people. It was exactly the sort of people that we were trying to, like, move away from inviting, like directly inviting, not saying that they weren't welcome there, but we wanted to intentionally invite some of the younger, newer generation of people, like we were saying, like, not all of the, like, sort of usual suspects and things, and make it as diverse as possible. And yeah, like, I think it definitely is like the older guard that tends to have more of a pushback whenever something like that is brought forward.
yeah. So Sundari says there was actually the most incredible talk at the Spotlight, which I think because he was super late and wasn't very busy. I think his name was Jagdish Patel.
Yeah.
She said that was his favourite talk out of all of them. It was called Socially Engaged Photography, and actually, that was one of the talks that we got the best feedback on.
Yeah.
And the most people saying how interesting that was and how it really made them think in different ways about not only how they take photographs, but how photographs were taken in history, and some of the stuff that we see as very historically relevant photographs have a different backstory to what you believe. It was fascinating. I really wish I'd have had time to actually stay, but as an organizer, I was coming and going. But that was a fantastic talk, and it was such a shame because unfortunately he had travel issues, and so he was really late and had to do his talk when we'd said there was going to be a lunch break. So there was a very small audience for that. But yeah, that was amazing.
So, yeah. Jagdish is amazing. Jagdish is from Nottingham, actually. He was one of the ones that I invited from. He's involved in the Nottingham photo community here, so yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, he was great.
So Sundari says, was there the demand? I think there was, because as I say, the feedback for his talk was amazing. Like, obviously the feedback for ours was amazing as well. But yeah, that certainly in our feedback we got some amazing stuff. Here we go.
Can I just looking at some of the comments coming through, some of them was just about sort of just going back to this whole having a space for sorry, my voice is going, for like a specific demographic, and then like there being spaces specifically for that. And I just think you can have both. Like, you can have something that's for everyone, because those already exist, really, like technically, but certain people might feel excluded, and that's why you have something that's maybe targeted at specific demographics, like She Hearts film. And I just think sometimes people get super upset, like but they don't realize there's an infinite, like, we're not limited to how many things we can do. Like, and I think that's part of the issue when talking about diversity, and like, you know, it's people seem to get really defensive about space, like as if there's only a limited amount you can have for certain things, but really it can be infinite, really.
Yeah, and actually, with Emma and Alex doing the grainsplaining, funnily enough, I was in talks with someone from the Sunny 16 podcast about doing something similar through the Analogue Spotlight with them on a set like this, doing the panel discussions, but in a similar way to the way they've done it. And then obviously theirs came through first, and there was that initial shock of like, oh well, I had wanted to do that, but then I thought, no, that doesn't matter. Like, they're doing that. I haven't actually got the time to do it. I would love to support them in what they're doing, and I want to talk to them about what they're doing, and I want to see who else wants to chat about what they're doing. And it doesn't have to be a competition. And I think there is like this, I mean, from the books I've read, I mean, I don't know if I'm just sort of biased by the books I've read, but like, it's like a patriarchal thing of women need to be in competition for the top spot, and we don't. And again, it's not just women, obviously it's all people, but the books that I've read tend to be female dominated, about women fighting in corporate spaces for senior positions, and so that like comes through, and I have to keep telling myself it is not a competition, it is not a competition. Like that can be quite difficult. So we've got Adam was, how can we ensure that all individuals have an equal voice within the community to thrive rather than survive? Often feels that it's a small demographic and sometimes individuals who dominate. Here we go. I feel that a lot of events are still very much dominated by such demographic, and that may make others not feel comfortable enough to show up. That is exactly it. That's what we've been saying.
And Electrochrome,
that's Molly.
Okay. Said something.
I've experienced an anti-diversity sentiment with several photographers. How do we work with those people, or do we separate from them? Interesting question.
Anti-diverse.
So I think this is basically like the backlash that we faced, especially when we launched our market research survey, where people were saying things like, I shouldn't have to give you my sexuality information. Well, no, you don't have to give me it, but I'm putting it out there that we want to understand the audience. But we get this anti-diversity sentiment. What do we do with that? Do we ignore them and just forge ahead, or do we try to reach them? What do you guys think?
I think you should try to explain the reasons why it's important. I think it's like in any industry.
Yeah.
And then if you get to a point where you can't explain anymore, then just ignore them.
Yeah. I think Carl had a really similar sort of scenario, didn't he? Carl, is it McDougall or McDougall? Anyway, so Carl was there, and he was saying that he arranged like a photo walk with friends, and then, or just with people, and then it ended up being quite male dominated, and then he got called out for it. And then we had a conversation there talking about like that there's a way that you can call people out that is respectful. You don't have to kind of, just be accusatory, or like it doesn't have to be negative, because sometimes people just genuinely like he didn't like realize, like have that recognition that actually what I'm doing is quite exclusive as opposed to inclusive. And sometimes people just need to just be, gently made aware of that, and with the same sort of respect that you would want to receive yourself. And so I think, yeah, to echo, I guess what Izzy said, like, yes, I think you could, if you feel safe and it feels appropriate to engage with this person and to let them know. But then, if it doesn't, then, you've got to protect your own energy in your own space and just move forward with what you're doing anyway. And then, those who, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So you'll attract people that are on board with you.
I think have a good, rehearsed line to say.
Yeah.
That explains something well. And then if they don't get that, move on.
Yeah. So I don't know who this person is, but here we go. I thought this was quite interesting. I think you went the wrong way about introducing yourself to the community. You sent out the questionnaire. I think you mean before you fully introduced yourself. So in other words, we were trying to understand the audience before we'd really explained what it was that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the toughest things sort of working through it. I can, like, I'm not calling this person out at all, like I think that's very valid, but it's so difficult when you're so into it to know what the right way to communicate. Like, I'm not a trained PR person, like I am just someone who just wants to try and make a difference. And yeah, should we have to explain ourselves as we try to do these things? And I think that's a question that we keep asking ourselves, like, should we have to keep saying, this is why I'm doing it, this is what I'm doing, or do we do it and hope people get it? I don't know, like, it's really, like, Max, do you think you'd have been as on board with what we were doing if I hadn't entered it from a diversity perspective? Or do you think you'd have just thought it was another thing going on and you'd have passed it by?
I think if it was like the vibe that I got from the questionnaire was like, oh, okay, this is going to be something that's community based, and like they're trying to sort of get a vibe of like who is actually involved in this community in the respect of being like committed to filling out a questionnaire and being committed to the community in a way that's, you know, signing up for something or actively engaging. Because there's a lot of film photographers, but you don't really know how many of those are gonna show up to an event, be engaged with the community, and sort of have open discussions. So that was the sort of vibe that I got from it, was sort of you were trying to gauge like who was actively engaging with Analogue Spotlight.
Yeah, so sorry, a lot of people thought you were on a data collecting mission. Yeah, that was the vibe we got. People got very upset about what we were going to be doing with the data.
So what though? Like,
what would you
what are you gonna?
I don't know.
More
But I
data
think
than
I
Are you going to be calling up the government and saying, I've got all this data about analog photographers? You're not going to believe it.
yeah.
I mean, I do think it's a valid point that we, you know, as I say, I'm not like trained in PR. I don't know how to write these sorts of communication statements, but yeah, this was the sort of
Pushback.
Initial, and I've said it before, like it was very interesting to see across different platforms the different responses. So on Instagram, everyone was really positive and really enthusiastic. On Twitter, people were questioning and probing. They weren't either enthusiastic or critical. They were just sort of trying to gauge what it was. And then on Facebook, people were like actively criticizing us and getting aggressive, which was a very interesting split. But yeah, it was weird how funny people felt about the way that we were trying to understand the audience and what people, I don't know what people thought we would have been doing with the data. Like,
yeah. To be fair, I do get that some people are very nervous about that. I just guess
Yeah.
I feel, because I am on Instagram a lot. I just feel like I've already signed over all of my information, so I feel probably more comfortable. So I don't know.
Yeah, so Dori said something interesting. She said it's because the questions were triggering because people felt that they weren't falling within the parameters that is considered diverse. And I think that's a really interesting point, is that sometimes people feel attacked even when you aren't attacking them.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you're talking about me? Like, and it's just like, no, we're just like, but if you feel that it applies, I don't know. Like, you know, it's just, I think it's just one of those things where, which just goes back to like giving people like grace and respect. And like, I guess if we were to do an exercise like this again, we would use all of the feedback. I mean, you guys obviously started this before I joined, but you know, if we were all to do it again, like we'd use all of the feedback that we have, but you know, none of us are professionally trained in this area. It's just something that we're all really interested in about and passionate about, and we just wanted to understand who the people were that we were trying to you know, target, I guess, and like who we had available, like in the community, like what the landscape was like. And then from that learning, it could be like, okay, so what can we do to improve this? And that's all it was. So it came from very innocent origins. But you know, I guess it's just like people take things people take things how they take things, and I don't even really know how we would do it differently. I think we'd have to really think about that, but you know, here we are. I think it's all worked out.
Yeah.
Was it voluntary? I can't remember. Was the survey voluntary?
Yeah. No, it was just
Yeah.
something we put out on social media and said we just want to understand the community, basically.
Yeah.
We had, you know, we had ideas of what we wanted to offer to people as like a business, with these goals as the center and how we wanted to go about it. And so we put out this market research questionnaire to just try and get a better feel for the audience, for what people wanted, for anything they felt was missing. So it was completely voluntary. We were just sort of asking, you know, please help us in this.
In no way, like, I don't think any of the questions were mandatory, and you know, it's all just like a good learning curve and good experience anyway. So
so London Backpacker is George. George is a lovely man. So it wasn't the diversity, it was the fact that no names were mentioned, only Analogue Spotlight. So I'm guessing you were Twitter then, because I think Twitter is like the one space that I am so not on. And that was the one where people were like, who is this? What is this? What's going on? Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, Facebook was definitely where we got battered the most. Yeah, if anyone's wondering, I did just answer this in the comments, but this will be available afterwards. It takes a moment for YouTube to convert it, but it will be on my channel once we're done. And yeah, so Anton says, I agree that sharing any kind of personal info involves trusting the receiving part. Exactly. I do agree, and I think that's why that's obviously why we put it as voluntary disclosure. So even if you wanted to complete the rest of it, it was all voluntary. But yeah, I can completely understand. So Sundari, I'm personally so glad to have been invited by Alicia, because otherwise I'd not have joined this space. This first step for me also has given me trust towards this part of the community, as even now I still feel very outside of previous photography communities I try to be part of.
Oh, you were one of the first people I thought about, Sundari, to be honest.
Oh, look, there we go. Yep, Twitter. See, I knew I saw this like divide between what was going on. I knew it. Here we go. What's this? Photographers can be quite solo creatures and find musician artists are a rich, diverse, high community part of our culture that can link up really well with photographers. Interesting. I've never really thought about the overlap, to be honest. Anyone here a musician?
Nah.
I do music photography, but
I sing in the shower. I don't know if that counts. Probably not.
Yeah, Max can do like Sorry.
Oh, no, Sundari, sorry.
Talking over everyone. Sorry.
I just said I paint. Oh, okay. I don't know if it's just for me that the audio.
Sundari paints amazing, beautiful backdrops. So if anyone wants a backdrop, then
yeah. So this was something actually that was requested. Sundari obviously is going to have to communicate via me, but people wanted to know a bit more about everyone's backgrounds and how they sort of, I suppose, came to be part of this panel. Like, what do you do and why are you interested in this as a topic? I'm going to start with Alicia, as you're at the sort of top left.
What? How I got started in all of this, or
how you came to analog photography, and
well,
what made you interested specifically in diversity?
Okay, I'm very old, so so for starters, I mean, the first camera that I picked up was an analog camera, because that's all we had to shoot with. I was born in the 80s, so so yeah, like that's what we had. Film was the only thing we had, so I come from that generation. moved into digital by the time that I got to uni. I went to uni and studied photojournalism, so had to go into using a digital camera. But then I was kind of like of the group that never really stopped shooting film. Like, it was always in vogue. It never really died for me. So I was really happy when the analog like sort of resurgence came back around. And then my partner also is a freelance photographer as well, and he's always collected lots of cameras and was like had been repairing them and refurbishing them for years, like his own sort of collection. And then like just before the pandemic, maybe a year before, we started selling finished cameras on eBay. And then just before the pandemic started, which we didn't know it was going to happen either, we were just like, let's turn it into a proper thing. So we came up with the name Lensfair, and then we opened our camera store online on Depop, is where we started, like literally 1 week before lockdown. And then there was lockdown and we were like, oh great. But luckily I think what happened was there was just so many people that were like, I've been thinking about doing this for a while and I want to get into it. And so we found that we actually attracted a lot of beginner photographers who were just picking up the hobby for the first time in lockdown. And for that reason, it just so happened to be quite successful, in our own terms. Like we're quite happy with what we've achieved. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. Basically, I've always been into photography, but that's how we came to have the store.
And what got you interested in diversity and being part of the Analogue Spotlight?
Well, I guess being diverse myself, like literally being a Black woman, is something that is it's just who I am. It's what I embody, and it's just always been something that's close to my heart. Even having the subject that I picked at university, photojournalism, I've always been interested in kind of exploring like the unreported world and subcultures and things like that. So it's always been like something that I've done. I've always been like an advocate for diversity, and I'm kind of like a walking advocate for diversity, I guess, in a sense as well. And yeah, so it's something that's just quite natural to me. And then we were thinking about, when we started Lensfair as well, one of the reasons why we started was because we were seeing, like, with the upturn of analog photography, like people were, I guess, kind of taking advantage and selling cameras really expensively. And we were just like, we wanted to do it differently. I mean, it's kind of like part of our name as well, right? Like, it's like a play on words, like lens flare and Lensfair, and also being fair. And anyway, there's a lot of things going on there. There's a lot of things going on there. Like, and the fair, like, as in, like, the oldie worldy fair thing. I know, right? We thought about it. And so, like, that's one of the things that we did. Like, so we wanted to be as diverse as possible, and we're going to share everyone's work. And we were doing all of these things in the beginning to just try and attract as many different photographers from different backgrounds as possible. We actively go out, like, approached people to interview, like two of whom are sat here today. Like, I actively, contacted them and was just like, hey, we want to hear from you. Like, and it's just always something that I've been interested in. And then speaking to Hamish, like, I saw that came up with the Analogue Spotlight, and I shot my shot. And I just said, this is something that I want to really be involved in. And he was just like, yeah, so here I am.
I wish you would share your photos.
I know, I should. This is exactly what Dan says. He's like I said, he's off screen and he's just like nodding. I think I will. I actually opened a granary. So I think it's just Instagram generally. Like, I feel like it's to me, it's kind of still too heavily dependent on the algorithm and things like that. And I find it quite disheartening sometimes, like, just, posting on there and, like, you're not getting the engagement that you feel that you should get, or like, I feel like it's just too heavily dependent on like, like being a popularity contest. And I don't want my photography to be part of that, like, because I just do it because I love doing it. And so it puts me off. And I guess that's also shown in Lensfair's own Instagram page, because we don't post that much generally. Also because we're really busy. But like it's kind of I think I joined Granary, so I think I'm going to start posting on there. So I'll share my Granary handle and we can all follow each other.
Yeah. Go on then, Max, your turn.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just checking because I think my headphones died. Yeah, so I don't really know how I got into photography. It just like sort of happened when I was sort of in my teenagers. I just sort of bought a DSLR and started taking photos, and just took lots of portraits of my friends and did lots of like makeup stuff, and like I was friends with lots of artists, so then they would like paint things on my friends and I take pictures of it. It's all very bizarre. Like I don't want to look at the pictures again, but good times. And then I decided to do photography at university because I was just like, why the hell not? And I went to my interview and they were like, oh, do you use analog cameras? And I was like, no. And they were like, oh, well, you ought to. Like, you better get on with that because that's like the majority of the photography we do here is analog, not digital. Like, digital is very shunned upon.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Well, the university. So I went to UAL London College of Communication. That's University of the Arts London. Sorry, I always say UAL. And they've got huge analog facilities, like full C41 machines, full dark rooms, just all of it that you could ever. It's like a photographer's dream. So they were very heavily sort of like, you should shoot film. So then that summer I was like, oh, I'll borrow someone's film camera and just give it a go. And then I've literally not stopped since. And then sort of throughout uni, like some people say like, oh, my camera's broken. I don't really know what to do with it. And I was just kind of like, oh, well, I'll have a look at it. Like it can't be that hard to figure it out. So I fixed a few things like here and there. And then we had like the pandemic and going into lockdown, and I was bored. So I was just sort of buying job lots of broken cameras and fixing them and then selling them on eBay, quite similar to what Alicia was saying. And then I was just like, this is amazing. Like I absolutely love doing this. So then I set up Cameras by Max, and we started off on Depop as well. We went Depop, Etsy, and now our own website. So yeah, I just absolutely love doing it. So I was just doing it throughout all of the lockdowns. And yeah, this is where I am now. So yeah, that's it really.
Rob says fixing cameras is a superpower. Izzy, go on then.
Well, I think I don't know if I'm like the only one really here that's like actually not like it's purely a hobby for me, and I don't have a business that's at all related to photography. It's literally just
to be honest, I feel that way. I may have the analog spotlight stuff, but I in terms of photography, I feel like a hobbyist.
Fair enough. Maybe we all feel like that, really. But yeah, it's a pure hobby for me, and I started it. Oh my gosh, I think about over 3 years ago now. Like specifically analog. I got into it through a friend, and then a family friend gave me an analog camera, and I just got into it, and I think it fell quite well with well, not well, but with the COVID and having lots of extra free time, and that's how I properly sort of started to get into it more. The only word that's coming to my head right now is aggressively, but that is not the right term. But that's how I got more and more into it, just because I had the time, I guess. And then it just became extremely addictive. And I've ended up with so many more cameras now through people just like I've won a couple, and people have given me them, and I now have just accumulated quite a few now, as Max will know, because I end up sending quite a few to you for repair.
Didn't you say that you've like never bought a camera? You've only ever been given them?
I've bought one camera, and that was my very first point and shoot, an Olympus XA2, and I got it back before they went crazy expensive. So that's the only one I've ever bought, and that's my very first one that my best friend said I should get because I liked her photos and she had the same camera. So yeah, I'm very lucky. That's it really.
I think, I mean, I'm sure most people know who you are and why we invited you, why we knew your name to invite you. I don't want you to think that's the only reason you've been invited. That is why your name came up in conversation is the open letter to Kodak, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess by that point it was like the summer of 2020, which was the summer after of COVID, and I think I was very wrapped. I just was very I was just really getting into analog photography and particularly the space on Instagram and the community, and I just felt very frustrated that I just couldn't see female photographers and other underrepresented people, to be fair, just not given the same recognition and the same support. And what was probably the thing that really annoyed me most of all was just that people weren't, that just a lot of people were denying there was a problem. It was very strange. I just thought in most of the industries, at least there's like a recognition that there's an imbalance. Like in the industries I'm part of for my actual job, people will be like, yeah, the construction industry, it's really male dominated. They'll acknowledge it and it'll be like, what can we do? I just found that in photography, there just seemed to be a real lack of, I'm not saying this is the case with everything, but there did just seem to be a lot of people denying that there was an issue, just not really wanting to do anything about it. And I think that's where that letter came from, really.
Okay, so Sundari has typed hers out. I'll read it out. So Sundari began shooting film only a few years ago after working with film photographers for years when working in the wedding and events world. I admired the process, but also think I wasn't sure about the affordability. I shot digital, but not seriously. For my 30th birthday, my uncle gave, I think, a check of £100, and I immediately used it for my first ever film camera, a Pentax K1000. I self-taught myself, but also had a lot of photographer friends I was able to lean on to ask questions. But I just followed and found a real solace and creativity in it like never before. It felt like an emotional part. Since starting as a hobby, it also became part of my work because I admire the process so much. Being part of this conversation of diversity, I think, is the first time I actually felt validated, which is strange because I'm a South Asian woman. I'm very much part of this conversation. I feel so passionate about being part of it, especially because this space, as it feels safe. I know Alicia and her work and what she's trying to do. I've never felt safe before in any photography community before, and I just get angry. What you were saying about the solace and the creativity. So I will briefly touch on mine, but I don't feel like this is about me, so I won't go into my background too much. But I started film photography in like 2015, but then when I had kids, I just sort of lost all sense of myself and just didn't do anything other than being a mum. And then when lockdown hit and sort of all of the sort of busyness of being a parent was sort of stripped away, you know, play dates, school, all these sorts of things, I just completely lost all of my sense of identity. And so I was very lucky to see a therapist, like online, obviously. And with them, I sort of started to find things that were just for me again. And one of those things was coming back to film photography. And it was that thing of having this thing for me. And with film photography, as many people say, what they love about film photography is how much it slows them down, how much of it like a meditative practice. And I remember one person, I can't remember where it was, but one person said to me that even the act of breathing when you're like if you're doing macro photography, and you have to like control your breath and think about where your breathing is when you click the shutter so you don't shake the camera when you're doing macro. And I just thought, yeah, that is it. Like it's that being so in it. And so, yeah, Sundari, what you just said about like the solace and the creativity is what the emotional part is what it is for me. And then coming back at that time into Instagram and not really understanding how the communities work because I'd never really been, like I had an Instagram before, but like it wasn't something that I sort of actively participated in, but then I wanted to actively participate. I wanted to feel a sense of community and engagement with others because it was lockdown, but I didn't understand how it worked. And I say I'm very lucky that it wasn't Hamish, it was Shoyon, who writes for 35MSC, who came across one of my personal blog posts and said, "Oh, would you consider writing for 35MSC?" That really got me into the community, and then Hamish is part of the Analogue Spotlight as well. So it is all entwined, and how I came to be here. But yeah, I love hearing how everyone gets into it.
Rob's posted his one as his something as well.
Yeah, so Rob, I was shooting digital for years, but the lenses were so expensive, and a mate told me about buying adapters and fitting old lenses from analog cameras. At that time, people were giving bodies away with lenses, so I thought I might as well shoot one. I kept buying more and went down a gas-fueled rabbit hole. I'm now trying to make those amazing photographs that my dad used to take in the 70s. Now I'm in love with the community. I enjoy doing the photo walks just to
be around.
Oh, just to be around, sorry, like-minded people. Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, like, within this, like, you do find, and that's what I found doing this, like, talking with Alicia and stuff, like, just having someone who is so on the same wavelength is so nice.
Sundari said she needs to do one of Rob's photo walks.
Yeah,
and actually,
you definitely do.
Yeah, and actually, Max had a great question. So we all posted questions in our stories asking people for, questions to ask us. And Max, you had a really good one, didn't you?
Yeah. So someone asked like what Instagram accounts or platforms people go to find diverse photographers. Yeah.
And I would say that Rob's is definitely one of them. And also, Izzy, you do that Sunday stroll. Or I love that.
Scroll.
Yeah, Sunday stroll. That's it. Like, and I absolutely love those. Like, they're always great photos, and I always go and check people out. And I think I used some of the photos, like when I showed you anyway, like when we did that what was it that we were doing? I can't remember what it is, the takeover thing. And I used like you as an example. And I was just like, do you mind me using your work and like some of the things that you shared? Just because like I think you're really intentional with what you do, and the same with Rob as well. Like even if you're not, I don't know if you're like even trying to be, but I think that when you have that mindset anyway, you just naturally gravitate towards being inclusive. And yeah, you've both got great accounts for that. So I would say yours.
That's so sweet. I definitely agree about Rob's as well, because just an amazing selection of people I've not come across. Like, I don't know, like, so I think he knows how to beat the algorithm. So good.
Yeah. Got a good eye.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's definitely getting better. When I was trying to pull together a list of people to include, to reach out to for the Photography Through the Pandemic book, it was really hard. So we started with people who had written for 35MMC, which was unfortunately very predominantly white males. But I used Instagram and I used the hashtags, because there are certain hashtags that have popped up, like queer film photographers, female film photographers, all of these things. But obviously they're not necessarily very well taken up, and it always felt weird to reach out to people through those hashtags. But that was one method that I used when I was trying to sort of come across new people, to reach people whose voices I wasn't hearing, was just to search for, see if I could find any relevant hashtags on Instagram.
I mean, obviously, in terms of like pages and stuff, obviously the film sorority is a good one for finding like a real diverse range of photographers, and also relating to like Instagram guides. Soft Boy Films does a guide on a Sunday. It's called Sunday Inspo, and that's always really great as well.
Front photography, actually, can't forget them. They're brilliant for that, and just advocating generally for just everyone in the community. Like they share absolutely everything, and they're lovely people as well. So yeah, they're a great page. but I feel like everyone knows about all of these,
Yeah.
pages. Someone's asked a question that I thought was really interesting. It was, have you tried personal photography projects and not just standalone images? And what benefit has this given you? That was asked by Ambient Wave.
I'm trying to show it on the screen, but my thing is frozen.
Oh.
What actually is that? Is that like where you sort of set?
It's like I guess it's like a themes, like, so as I did photojournalism, so everything that I did was like a project basically. So it's like something that has a narrative running through it, and like a photo story, I guess. Like a kind of like body of work that is all like, do you know what I mean? Like a comprehensive body of work that's all like related. And so yes, for me, after that, I think that's just how I've always done photography, because I studied it. So that's just what was taught to me. And it's not something that I've done recently, as everyone knows. And it's something that I do want to get back into. I actually have a project in mind at the moment that I want to get into, and that's why I want to start posting on Granary. But I think that one of the last projects I did was on a movement called freeganism, which I think is a lot more popular now. I think that it's known by lots of different terms, but it was originally known as freeganism, and it's basically people that that go to, like, you know, the backs of supermarkets, or like dumpster dive as it's called, or whatever, and they get free food. And so food that's just like thrown out, but there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it just goes to waste. Oh, my battery's running low. Sorry, I need to plug it in.
Don't worry. I think we're gonna wrap up in a minute. I think, because we have been going for an hour and a half, guys.
Oh, have we? Okay.
Yeah. So I've got the final question that I love from Max in our email chat. I want you to share your worst stories of being in the industry, moments when you thought, "Oh God, this has to change."
Way to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping it might be humorous.
Do you want to start, Max?
I think, yeah, I don't really have a like worst story specifically, but I think like one of my main motivations for starting my business was the way that I was treated in camera shops, and like the reception that I got from people that worked there, and like the way that those stores and the staff would make me feel like I would just feel like such an imposter, like I didn't know the terminology that they were saying, and I couldn't afford the most expensive camera. And I just feel like, yeah, there was so many times when I went into a camera shop or somewhere in that kind of space, especially at university with all the camera snobs around, that I felt really excluded and sort of, yeah, because I didn't know as much as the next person, that I was sort of looked down upon, and, you know, would get things mansplained to me. And there was a few times where there was just an assumption that I didn't know what I wanted, or I didn't know what I was talking about, or that I couldn't afford a certain piece of gear, and that I was just there for like the giggles and not to be a serious photographer. Yeah, so that was like kind of, you know, what motivated me to start my business, and why I sort of, yeah, want to advocate the diversity in film. Although one thing did just come to mind, so I used to do music photography, so I'd work in the pits in the front of the concert. So you have the stage, and then there's about a 2-meter gap, and you have the barricade, which the crowd is behind. So I was working in there. There's about 40 photographers in there, and I'm 5'4", so I'm not short, but I'm the same. My shoulder is the same height as the stage. And there was this photographer behind me who was quite tall, and he had 2 camera bodies. I'm sure you guys can all picture this person, but they had 2 Canon F5D Mark IVs or whatever, with the 70 to 200 millimeter lens, on those like swingy holster thingies. And he rested his second body on my shoulder whilst he was taking pictures with his first body.
Oh my God.
So he used you as a tripod, basically.
Pretty much.
What did he do? Did you do anything?
I moved my shoulder away and then turned around and gave him the death stare. And he just sort of looked down at me and went, "Oh, you were in my way."
What? Oh my
I was
god.
like, "Oh, okay then."
Oh my god.
Yeah, music photography is a whole other industry that you don't really want to get started on that. But yeah, so that's kind of
Holy
That's
moly.
cool.
Okay, I've got one. So when I did like an interview with two women from America who are into film souping. So this idea of basically ruining your film with a random concoction of things. Like I love that stuff. So I've been doing it, and I did like an interview amongst us, like a chat, but in article format. And someone was so incensed and so outraged at this idea of photography, like doing this to your film, and how dare Hamish publish such drivel on his website, and basically just went off on this massive tirade. He had originally put it in a comment, which obviously Hamish would not allow to be published, and then went at him through emails. And I just thought, bloomin' heck, like that is gatekeeping to the max. Like it was like he was so derogatory about what we were doing and could not understand the idea that we do it for the joy of it, and
Yeah.
just mental the way people think about other people's work. Oh, Rob says ridiculous price markups needs to change. I've seen Kodak Gold go for £26 a roll. What?
It's
Oh my
stupid.
God.
Yeah,
That's
agree 100%.
Totally.
I've not had to buy film for a while because I've actually really slowed. Like I've been prioritizing darkroom work, so I've not been buying actual film for a while. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone should just use black and white because that's so cheap and easy to get.
No.
To be honest, I just prefer black and white in general, just the whole process. Shooting it, developing it,
I forgot
printing
what was the original question?
It was, when did you realize that things needed to change? What was there a moment or an event that made you realize that things needed to
I
change?
suppose
So I
that
have
was
a
part of
few.
Izzy's thing on
Yeah.
Her Kodak letter.
Oh yeah, I don't need to say anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give. Well, should I? I was gonna say I was gonna give your anecdote about the Magnum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like so when this isn't mine, this is Dan's, but I think it's a really good one, and it's part of the reason why we started Lensful in the first place, was because at the end of leaving uni, Dan got offered a placement with Magnum, which is obviously amazing. Magnum in New York, like who wouldn't want that? That's like going to be like a career defining thing, right? But or like starting thing, but he wasn't able to do it because he literally couldn't afford it. So you have to be completely self-sufficient to be able to do it. So like you're gonna be interning there, you're not going to be earning any money. Like who can afford to do that but rich kids? And so I think it was just like those sorts of things that happen, like all of these exclusive sort of very beneficial portfolio reviews and courses and things that you can go on are usually far too expensive for just the average person to participate in. And I guess it's just an accumulation of all of those types of things that we were just like, okay, what can we do and how can we help and what can we do to change this? And hence as joining Analogue Spotlight and other things that we're doing and want to do in the future. So like, yeah, I would say that.
And that's nice because that's from a slightly different perspective, isn't it? It's from this, as you say, the socio-economic perspective. It's nice that we represent all sorts of different aspects of diversity and in this. It's lovely. Well, I think that's going to be it because we've been going for nearly 2 hours.
Yeah.
I've had a wonderful time chatting with you. I hope you guys have enjoyed it too.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you guys, and thank you everyone who chatted with us and joined in.
Rob loved it.
Rob loved it, even with his technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I think he loved just being in the chat and like.
Yeah, that was it was all planned, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, what we'd like to do is make this a semi-regular thing, you know, have different guests in, chat about different things, and just have some fun times on YouTube Live, as long as we can get it to work.
Yeah, it's been lovely. Thank you for asking me.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks to
I
everyone.
am going to turn off the live then.